Hi, it's Jeff. Stay tuned for my latest interview. Do you want to learn and be inspired by the leading art professionals who are shaping our culture? The Art Career Podcast is breaking barriers by letting you sit in on candid, straightforward conversations with luminaries in visual arts, writing, music, theater, and film. Join New York-based advisor, curator, and overall artist advocate Emily McElreath for authentic and inspirational conversations with icons of our generation like Cheryl Strayed, Jerry Saltz, and Marilyn Minter. Emily dives deep into topics like self-development, career trajectories, mental health, social justice, and the artists that have changed our lives. Expand your journey through the arts and feel empowered about what you do. Subscribe to The Art Career today, wherever you listen to your podcast. Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Taylor Adams, author of the new novel, The Last Word. I interviewed Taylor previously on the podcast, and I'll add a link to that earlier interview in the show notes. Writer Riley Sager wrote about the novel, a white-knuckle, read-in-a-sitting thrill ride. In The Last Word, Taylor Adams ratchets up the tension to an unbearable pitch, then keeps going. Thriller fans, take note. You need to read this book. Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, if someone hasn't heard about your new novel yet, how would you describe The Last Word?
So, The Last Word is basically, I've heard it kind of described as almost a reverse Misery, where instead of a evil reader terrorizing an author, it's an evil author terrorizing a reader. But basically, it's about this woman. She lives alone in a really remote location with her golden retriever. She reads a lot. She reads just this terrible, crappy book. She rates it 1 star online. And, as we all have, but this time it turns out the author is a psycho and he comes after her. And so kind of a home invasion thriller, there's a little bit of comedy. I had so much fun with this book.
Yeah, I love the premise. Do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to write The Last Word?
Honestly, I don't think my memory goes back that far. But I do remember being really excited when I was developing the story. I think I wrote the prologue, like the 5 or 6 page prologue before I even had a full story because I was just so excited conceptually with it. But yeah, I don't remember the exact moment where the idea came from. I think it's just from being a writer and from, knowing I do my best to just not read my negative reviews of my work, but it's just good for my mental health not to ever go on Goodreads. But what if an author couldn't?
Yeah, I was going to ask you as a writer if you ever read your online reviews.
I try not to. Usually when each book comes out, there's usually a window around the release of each book where it's like, okay, I kind of have to, because I have to see how it's landing with readers and kind of see, what the people who liked it are saying and what the people who didn't like it are saying. But then I always just have to disengage. And I try really hard to, never go to Goodreads, never go to Amazon for the Amazon pages for my books, and just try to focus on whatever I'm writing next. Cause it's, it is what it is. It's the internet.
Sure. And on that note, have you ever responded to an online review of one of your novels?
I'm sure there have been times when I've wished I could, but no, I've always kind of felt like I've always honestly been kind of afraid to, because I think that's such a bad look for a writer. And I don't know, it's online reviews are like, I feel like it's not my place, and I shouldn't even be reading them because it's not really my place to be reading them, because it's like they're for readers to talk to other readers and, kind of voice their opinions and share their thoughts. And it's like, as a writer, I shouldn't be privy to that. So it feels even kind of voyeuristic if I do end up on my Amazon page, because it's like, I know they wrote these reviews with other readers in mind. They didn't anticipate the author creeping around the page.
That's true. So, what was your writing process on The Last Word? Are you a planner or outliner, or do you just dive into the narrative? How does that work for you?
Definitely lots of planning, lots of outlining. With this one, especially, I think I'd written like 4 or 5 drafts of the story before we sold the book to the publisher. And my editor, the reason the last third of this book is I'm very happy with how the last 25% of this book turned out, and it's all because of my editor's idea. Like she really like pointed me in the right direction, and I remember at the time it was a little bit daunting because I was throwing away probably close to a year of work of drafts to kind of pursue this new direction that really excited me. But, at the same time, it's like, okay, I got to be sure about this because I'm throwing away a lot of work that was going in the wrong direction. But now that I'm on the other side of that, I'm so grateful for her input and her just having those great ideas, because they were exactly what I needed to, move the story in the right direction. And then obviously continue to keep outlining, because I am a hardcore outliner. I didn't realize how much of an outliner I was until this book.
As a writer, how is that process for you, for someone to come in? As you said, you've spent a year writing this, and they come in and say, you got to, they don't say you have to, but in the editorial process, they're strongly encouraging you to throw out, a year's worth of work. How do you kind of stomach that and start the rewriting process?
It's a little nerve-wracking. I think my biggest fear through the whole thing is that, because I know how lousy my early drafts are. Like they're bad, and I always think my biggest fear is that I'm letting myself get talked out of an idea that could work after more passes, just because the initial version of it that I presented was just so not what it should be. So that's always kind of an early fear. Like I have to make sure, okay, like I really went to bat correctly for this. I did this idea justice, and the input was, no, that's not going to work. Once I get past that hurdle and I feel like, okay, I've done my part. I mean, it's still nerve-wracking because you're still, changing direction on a story, but it's also kind of reassuring to have another voice in there. And I've got other people who I talk to and I bounce ideas off of. And, I've got my fiance, and I've got my parents, and I've got my manager, and I've got like people who I can kind of talk to and go, okay, would this work? And it's kind of reassuring to not be going alone, because, when I first started this, forever ago, when I was writing my first novel, I felt like I was on an island, and I didn't know what worked and what didn't work. And I had to just kind of trial and error my way through it. And now I'm lucky that I've got a little bit of a team on my side.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where you'll say, ta-ta T-Mobile, because we've got more reliable home internet that's a whole lot faster. In fact, 10 times faster. No, seriously, because we have real internet backed by our fiber-powered network. And T-Mobile, well, they just have a 5G cellular network. So act now to get superior home internet. Find your perfect speed with prices starting at just $19.99 a month for 24 months. Terms and conditions apply. Go to breezeline.com to learn more.
Progressive presents Precious Moments.
Hey, Jess, want to come for a ride on my motorcycle? We can talk about our feelings and explore our emotional compatibility.
I thought you'd never ask.
The exchange you just heard didn't actually happen, but it could. Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive, and you could use the savings to make sure the motorcycle is always ready for your dream girl. So keep the dream alive and the savings coming with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers.
So, how does it feel when you play Roll Up to Win with Tim Hortons? Buy a hot or cold beverage using the Tim's app and find out. Roll in the app for a chance to win prizes ranging from free coffee and donuts to a Universal Orlando resort vacation or a sweet car. Oh, don't forget the TV. And this year, every roll is a shot at a $1,000 daily giveaway drawing for 2 $500 prizes. Roll up to win and get treated by Tim's. No purchase necessary. Account registration required. 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 plus entered by 4/2/23. See rules at rolluptowin.com for free entry and full details. Void in Florida and where prohibited.
Sure. And what are your drafts like? I mean, you said you wrote 4 or 5 drafts before you even submitted it to a publisher. What's that drafting process look like for you?
So normally, like, every first draft comes in really severely underweight in terms of word count. Like, I mean, my books are usually 60, 70,000 words. They're usually like 40,000 words, and they're very, very skeletal. They basically read like outlines. And the reason I do that early on is I change so much stuff in the stories. I move so much stuff around. I really don't want to spend a lot of time fine-tuning the atmosphere, fine-tuning the details, getting the dialogue to ring just right if there's a 80% chance that I'm going to throw that scene in the trash on draft 5. So it's like, I really have to get the bones right and get the story beats in the right place. And then in the later drafts, then I can go in and I can really, flesh out the characters and flesh out the atmosphere and get the pacing just right and get, all those little things just right. But I don't feel comfortable doing any of that until I feel okay about the shape of the story. And so I think as a result, my first 3 or 4 drafts, they always kind of look like sketches or they kind of read like screenplays maybe, because there's just so little detail and they're so bare bones.
That's interesting. Have you started working on another novel?
Yeah, I am close to finishing a first draft on that. But again, it's my kind of a first draft. So it's very, very basic. I'm outlining, and I like to just kind of outline and then write a draft and then take it back to the drawing board and outline again. But yeah, I'm starting to rev up the engine on this one, and I'm having a lot of fun with a new thriller, because that's just what I like to write.
That's great. Well, what writing advice would you offer for those who are working on their own novels or short stories?
So I would say the biggest thing that I would have told myself years ago, and that I still tell myself to do now, because I don't always do a great job of this now. But try to find a schedule and stick to it. And, don't just wait to feel like inspired to write. Cause there's days like that where you're really excited to just jump in and you're excited for your story. But that's about like 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 20 days for me. Most of the time it kind of feels like work to get started. And, just set aside time and put in the time and hold yourself to a word count, whether it's 500 words or 1,000 words a day. And, it really does. It kind of turns it into a job, but it's amazing just when you put that time in cumulatively, how it does add up and it does get better. And it's so, I can't even remember how long it took me to write my first novel, but for the first year or two that I was working on it, because it took multiple years to write, I was only writing when I felt compelled to do so. And that's slow way to write a book. So definitely my advice is, carve out time wherever you can. I remember I used to, with my day job, I would get up at like 5 a.m. and I'd write like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then 7 a.m. on, I'd get ready for work. But you kind of, whatever works in your schedule, wherever you can squeeze that time in.
That's great. Well, what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
So there was one that I really, really loved. I remember I put it down and I think it was really late at night, and I just spent another hour just lying in bed thinking about it. It's an author I really like, Paul Tremblay. It's Pallbearers Club. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It is so good, and I've loved all of his work. But it's incredible. It's heartbreaking. It's funny. It's creepy. I think it's marketed as a horror. It's kind of horror adjacent, and I think that's what makes it so cool. But structurally, it's really neat, because the form of the book, the book it's a manuscript, and then there's another character who's writing notes and commentary in the margins. So it's a really meta way to tell a story, and it's fascinating.
That's interesting. I haven't heard about that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm familiar with the author, and I may be interviewing him in a few weeks. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, where can people find out more about you and your novels online?
So I have a website. It's tayloradamsauthor.com. I have to read all of my URLs off the inside of my book because I don't have them memorized. On Facebook, I'm Taylor Adams Author. And then on Instagram, I'm taylor.adams.author. So you can see there's definitely a theme there. I don't know why I had to read it off of the inside of a book, but there you go.
That's great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Taylor Adams, author of the new novel, The Last Word. The novel is on sale now, so go buy a copy. And Taylor, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Great. Thank you.
Some people might say coffee doesn't need chocolate, but you're not some people. You're a dreamer. You see the possibilities of chocolate and caramel flavors swirling together with cold brew, topped with velvety chocolate cold foam and cocoa caramel crumbles. That imagination can only be rewarded with Dunkin's new caramel chocolate cold brew. It's a cold brew dream come true. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.